Assalamu alaikum. This is your brother, student in the ministry, Alvin Muhammad, and I just wanted to thank you for tuning in to this week's edition to the Trumpet on Greenwood, coming to you live from the Greenwood beat on the historic, or coming out of the historic buildings that our ancestors built, the exemplary Black Wall Street. Again, thank you for tuning in. Give me a few seconds. I'm going to set up my Facebook Live so that those on Facebook could tune in as well. Had a few technical difficulties with the sound, so we're going to try this again. Hopefully you can hear me now. Can you hear me now? As Timo will ask. Again, this is your brother, student in the ministry, Alvin Muhammad. Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Trumpet on Greenwood, coming to you live from this historic new Black-owned, woman-owned radio station, the Greenwood Beat. Let me begin by saying I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I further bear witness that Minister Louis Farrakhan is indeed the divine reminder in our midst. I thank you all for tuning in to this week's edition as we tackle the subject, Yacub's grafted devil, the real synagogue of Satan. Yacub's grafted devil, the real synagogue of Satan. Last week we closed our presentation with one named Yacub and his followers being cast out of heaven or the Holy Land for indulgence or luxury preaching, much like the prosperity preaching we see far too often in religion today. This casting out of Yacub, or Jacob in English, that's the English version of Yacub, is hidden in coded language in the Bible. In Genesis 32 and 22, we have Jacob wrestling and prevailing over God at the ford of Jabbok in the Bible, the ford of Jabbok. But this was not the supreme being who has no equal being out wrestled by Jacob, but rather it was Yacub / Jacob who out wrestled or wrangled a God who was king in the Holy Land that the scripture is talking about. Remember, Psalms 82:6 reads, "Ye are all gods, children of the Most High God." So this concept should not be difficult to understand with a proper view of scripture and a proper view of our potential as children of God. Unfortunately, most of us don't have an understanding of our godship, because Psalms 82:7 goes on to say, "But ye shall die like men and fall like one of the princes." The whole passage reading, "Ye are all gods, children of the Most High God, but ye shall die like men and fall like one of the princesses." Why would we die like mere men and fall like one of the princesses? Due to the influence and control that Yacub's grafted devil has over black people, we die as mere men, never evolving into the gods the supreme being gave us the potential to be. We must understand that we have the potential to be greater than what we are manifesting, but because we fall under the influence of a wicked society, we don't manifest that great potential of God that we have the potential of evolving into. Again, Jabbok means to evacuate. And after God or the king wrestled with Jacob at the ford of Jabbok, it was agreed that it was time for Yacub / Jacob and his followers to evacuate the Holy Land. A similar scene is played out in Surah 7 of the Holy Quran, where we have one called Iblis, or the devil, being kicked out of paradise due to his refusal to bow down to the original man made by God in Surah chapter 7 and 12, which reads, Allah said to Iblis, "What hindered thee that thou didst not submit when I commanded thee?" Iblis said, I am better than him. Thou hast created me of fire, while thou did create him of mere dust. Most Islamic scholars teach that Iblis was one of the angelic beings of fire who refused to bow down to the man that Allah God made of dust. But in the footnotes of chapter 7, it reads, fire and dust may be a reference here to the nature of the temperament of the two classes, men and devils. According to these footnotes, a devil is one who is made of a fiery temperament, while the perfect man is humble and meek, being created of dust, which stands for humility and meekness. Jesus, we are taught, was a perfect man, full of humility and extremely meek. This is why we strive to be Christ-like, because Jesus personifies what man should be, the paragon of human potential. Iblis, or the devil, on the other hand, has no humility nor meekness, expressing very strong emotions, especially anger, in their behavior or speech, and are easily angered or aroused. So the devil are those having a fiery spirit, so the devil or those having a fiery spirit could refer to those of us who refuse to bow down to being a perfect man, practicing humility and meekness like Christ, but rather pursue debauchery and excesses like Yacub and his followers. You may say none of us are perfect, but Jesus tells us in Matthew 5:48, but ye are to be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. Was Jesus lying to us, or do we have the potential to be a perfect man like Jesus? You know, I saw a young man that the authorities just arrested here in Tulsa for sex trafficking and kidnapping. And I wondered, how could a black man, a descendant of slaves, who were tortured, kidnapped, and brought to America, be engaged in kidnapping and sex trafficking? I was quickly reminded that Yacub was a black man, and what I was witnessing was a present-day follower of Yacub's preaching. Remember, before Yacub grafted a devil on Patmos, he had black devils who were his followers, causing trouble in paradise, wanting to make other black people slaves to themselves. So the devil is not so much about color as it is character. And our challenge in this wicked world is to develop the character of Christ or fall under the influence of Yacub's devil. In response to being kicked out of paradise, this rebellious devil said in the Holy Quran, Surah 7:16, as thou hast adjudged me to be erring, I will certainly lie in wait for them in thy straight path. Then I shall certainly come upon them from before them and behind them, and from their right and from their left, and thou wilt not find most of them, most of us, thankful. Allah responds to the devil's challenge with, get out of here, despised and driven away. Whoever of them followed thee, I will certainly fill hell with you all. This was so because Yacub had followers, as indicated on page 113 of the Message to the Black Man, who subscribed to Yacub's teaching of debauchery, also known as luxury Islam. Islam is a word that means submission to God, and luxury at its root, at its origin, means debauchery, sexual intercourse, overindulgence. That is luxury at its root. It means something different today, but at the root of the word, at the origin of the word, it means debauchery. So we have those who won't accept God. They won't accept religion unless religion incorporates their desires, their desire to smoke, their desire to be with men or women who may not be their husband or wife, their desire to be with men who are the same sex or women who are the same sex. There are many of us who refuse to accept religion unless it includes that which we desire. This is what Yacub was teaching in the Holy Land. This type of teaching that it's okay to practice these things and be righteous. But this was opposed to what God was teaching and what those who subscribed to God were practicing in the Holy Land. So Yacub and his followers had to go. On page 114 of Message to the Black Man, this same scene of the devil and his followers being cast out of paradise is addressed as it reads: when they, Yacub and his followers, arrived at the island of Patmos, Mr. Yacub said to them, "See how the holy people have cast us out? Now, if you choose me to be your king, I will teach you how to go back and rule them all." Evolving out of the spook teaching we received as slaves, we must now grow to understand that just as God is a man, the devil is also a man. We got to get out of this teaching that way down in the earth somewhere there's a red devil-looking beast that's causing us to do all the wrong that we do. No, as God is a man, the devil, the opposite of God, is a man. And we are affected and influenced by that man, devil, in today's society. And we need to come and mature and realize that we are under such influence today. We must understand also that while the white man is in fact Yacub's grafted devil, that this white man is nothing more than a physical manifestation, a grafted regeneration of the unchecked wickedness that is within the original black man. I'm going to say that again. What we also must mature enough to understand is that while the white man is in fact Yacub's grafted devil, this devil is nothing more than a physical manifestation, a grafted regeneration of the unchecked wickedness that is within the original black man and woman. And this unchecked wickedness was the driving force within Yacub and his followers, that fiery spirit that caused them to make trouble in paradise, leading to them being exiled to the island of Patmos. In the supreme wisdom given to us by God, who came in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, it asked the question, to make devil, what must you do? And the answer is, to make devil, one must begin grafting from the original. The supreme wisdom also asks, who is the original man? The answer, the original man is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, the God of the universe. So from the same island that John the Revelator is said to have received a vision of the final battle between the followers of Christ and the followers of the devil, Yacub began grafting an army of devils, the opposers of Christ, who represents the perfect man on the island of Patmos. From this tiny island called Patmos, Yacub and his followers began experimenting with the brown germ that he discovered in the life germ or blood of the black man. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said Yacub desired to separate the brown germ from the black germ and drive it or develop it into its last stage and clothe it with flesh and give it form and expression. And that Mr. Yacub did, using the same process that has been used to whiten or lighten the Arabs, the Hebrews, who are now called Jews, and the Native Americans. Because this is learned behavior, Yacub put in place a birth control law, a selective breeding process where you marry the lighter unto the lighter and you kill the darker. So save the lighter, marrying the lighter unto the lighter. Today, many of us are possessed with this sick mindset of Yacub, bleaching our skin and body parts to be more white. We are so sick that we even bleach our backside so our backside would look like our white counterparts. But we possess this sickness today. We won't have relationships with a darker person because we don't want dark babies. This is a condition that we suffer with today, 6,600 years after the making of Yacub's grafted devil. Even though we are of African descent, the people of the sun, today many of us avoid the sun so that we don't get too black. This is learned behavior that has been institutionalized among us now for these 6,600 years. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said Yacub's birth control process took 600 years. And after 200 years, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said God revealed to him that there was a brown civilization on our planet. And 200 more years of the same process, a yellow civilization was in existence. And 200 years after that, that same process continuing for 600 years. And at the end of that time, there was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed creature on our planet called the Caucasian. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that Yacub lived to be 150 years of age, but his ideas continued in practice. He gave his people guidance in the form of literature, what they should do and how to do it in order to maintain control over black people. Now, this may seem far-fetched to many of us, but I ask us, who rules black people today? Who controls our community, our schools, our presence in the workplace, the health and well-being of our community? America is 247 years old today, and somehow this system of white supremacy is still in place, as though each new generation of white people have received some literature or guidance to keep control over black people, which causes us to cry out today in this time, Black Lives Matter. We are still suffering under such a system of superiority over those who are considered inferior. 247 years after America was established, yet we never consider, are these generations that come after that original generation that established America, have they been provided with literature and guidance on how to keep control over our people, over our community, over our schools, over our education, over our health? We have to think today and wonder and look into and study over the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad so that we can grow into an understanding of what is happening to us and what is happening in our community over us by those outside of our community. Yacub taught his grafted man tricknology, which is devilishment, telling lies, stealing, and how to master the original people. Has not this happened to our people? Have we been lied to in government? Has our land and resources been stolen from us? And does the white man exercise mastery over our people, both here in America, Africa, and all over the planet? We need to think today over these things. We need to consider the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It's important, brothers and sisters, that if you don't have a copy of Message to the Black Man, go get a copy of Message to the Black Man. This is your Bible that you need to read in order to grow into understanding of the true history of yourself, the true history of God, and the true history of the devil. Continuing, Mr. Yacub promised his followers that when you become unlike white, you may return to the Holy Land and people from whom you were exiled. And as he told them in the beginning, I will teach you how to rule over them all. According to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad on page 116 of Message to the Black Man, Yacub's grafted devils were called Caucasian, which according to Arab scholars means one whose evil effects is not confined to oneself alone but affects others. And according to Greek scholars, Caucus means a vessel or agent who delivers a message or part of a scheme. So when Yacub's grafted devil returned to the Holy Land and people, they brought with them a system of schemes and lies called tricknology, making trouble among the righteous, causing them to fight and kill one another in the same way black people are caused to fight and kill one another in the hood today. John 3:9 reads, "No one who is born of God will continue to sin, because God's seed remains in them. They cannot go on sinning because they have been born of God." This is how you know who the children of God are and who the children of the devil are. Anyone who does not do what is right is not God's child, nor anyone who does not love their brother and sisters. Do you feel loved in America? Do you feel that it's not right, that it's unrighteous, that after 400 years of free and chattel slavery, that black people have not received reparations? How could they say they love us when they will not and refuse to provide reparations for the free labor they received from our ancestors? That's not showing love. That's not showing compassion. I ask you, do you feel loved in America? Remember, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that Yacub wanted to separate the brown germ or seed from the original black man and drive or develop it to its last stage and give it form and expression. Yacub, through the process of grafting, desired to remove the germ or seed of God from the original man. That seed or germ that produced the perfect man who expressed humility and meekness like Jesus, and formed a kind of man or mankind who expressed the wickedness and debauchery that Yacub and his followers desired. According to the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, once the grafting was completed, 600 years later, Yacub's grafted man began migrating back to the Holy Land with their skills in tricknology, which is now called democracy, and within 6 months began causing trouble among the righteous, telling lies and causing them to fight and kill one another in the same way that black people are doing today. Mr. Yacub gave them instructions on how to disrupt the holy people, and that was to create gossip and slander among the people. And when they were fighting and killing each other, asked us if they would allow them, or if we would allow them to settle our differences. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said on page 117 of Message to the Black Man, "This method the white race practices on us, the black nation, the world over. They upset their peace by putting one against the other and then rule over them after dividing them." Does this not sound like our condition today? We can't figure out why we are fighting and killing each other as we do in our community. And who do we ask to bring peace in our community? Is it not the same police officers that we claim are killing us in the streets? The same ones that we accuse of killing us, not giving us justice, not treating us fair, are the same ones we're asking to come into our community to establish peace. Something is wrong with us. Why don't we work with each other to establish peace in our own community? Why are we looking at those whom we accuse of disrupting the peace? Why are we looking at them to bring peace in our community and expecting them to bring peace in our community? Something is truly wrong with us. We need to reevaluate what we do and how we do in order to address the concerns that we have in our community. It's time for us to take charge of our community and establish peace for our own selves. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad further teaches that once the people of Arabia figured out the source of their troubles, they rounded up Yacub's troublemaking grafted man, as many as they could find, and ran them across the desert into the caves and hillside of Europe, into the Caucasus Mountains, where they over a period of time went completely savage. Again, this all seems far-fetched to the educated of our people, raised up in this racist Christian culture. But Surah 18 and 18 of the Holy Quran, which is called the cave, and it reads, "And thou mightest thinkest them awake while they are asleep. And we turn them about to the right and to the left, with their dogs outstretching its paws at the entrance. If thou did look at them, thou would turn back and flight from them, and thou would be filled with amazement of them." Who was the they in the caves who had their best friend, the dog, outstretched at the entrance that the Holy Quran is speaking about? When you look at this description in the Holy Quran of these individuals that it is speaking about in the caves, it talks about their appearance and how their appearance would cause us to flee from them in amazement. When you think about this description, one cannot help but think about these pictures that they show us of Sasquatch, or the abominable snowman, because as the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches, these people are the people of Yacub. Yacub's grafted devil went totally savage. They did not comb their hair. They did not eat cooked food. They did not bathe when they went savage. So when you saw one of them with their bodies full of hair, natted up, you would flee from them because you would think that you would see a monster. This is the description that the Holy Quran is given of these individuals who went savage in the caves and hillsides of Europe. According to Jewish history, this is not the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad now. This is Jewish history. The forefathers of the present day Jewish community have their roots in what is called the Mountain Jews, or the Caucasian people. Caucasian Jews lived in the northern Caucasus Mountains, but according to researchers, their history dates back to their expulsion from the Holy Land. Let me say that again. The Caucasian Jews lived in northern Caucasus Mountains, but according to researchers, their history dates back to their expulsion from the Holy Land. Did not the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teach us that Yacub's grafted devil was cast out of the Holy Land? Yet here we have Jewish researchers telling us that which the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is trying to teach us. Sometimes we got to hear from a white man before we believe it. So it is important that you go and study what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is saying concerning the history of ourselves and the history of our counterparts, the white man. This is why they are establishing what is called critical race history, critical race theory, because they see that many of us are awakening to the history of ourselves. With this little device we have in our hand called the phone, we can look up information in an instant. And the more information we become aware of, we are starting to awaken to the reality of who we are and who those are who keep control of our community. So it is important, brothers and sisters, that with that device that we have, that mini computer that we have in our hand, that we do the necessary research about ourselves and our counterparts so that we know the time and what must be done. The Caucasus Mountains, brothers and sisters, are a set of mountain ranges at the intersection of Asia and Europe. The Caucasus Mountains are a set of mountain ranges at the intersection of Asia and Europe. The Holy Quran speaks of one called Dular Kanain in Surah 18, which is also called the cave. And he is said to have lived around the time of Father Abraham. And he was said to have lived to be at least 700 years of age. In Surah 18 and 94, it reads, "The people said, O Dular Kanain, Gog and Magog do mischief in the land. may we pay thee tribute or money on condition that we raise a barrier between us and them. Dul-Canaan asked them to bring blocks of iron, and they filled up the space between the two mountain ranges, the Lesser Caucasus Mountains and the Greater Caucasus Mountains, located near the Black Sea. And they poured molten brass over the iron blocks and filled the space so that the troublemaking people within the mountain range could not get out. This coincides with what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches on page 117 of Message to the Black Man, where he teaches us that once Yacub's made devils were driven out of paradise into the hills of Europe, the Caucasus Mountains, they were roped or cordoned in so that the people, the Muslims, could live in peace. Let me say that again. This coincides with what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches on page 117 of Message to the Black Man, where he teaches us that once Yacub's made devils were driven out of paradise into the hills of Europe, they were roped or cordoned off so that the people could live in peace. Everything that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us about the origin of the white man can be verified through their research. This is not Muslim researchers. This is their researchers, their historians, bearing witness to that which the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us about the white man. We have been taught that we were monkeys. We have been taught that we were apes. We have been taught that we were savages. The truth is, we civilized the world. We civilized the Caucasian who was savage in the caves and hillsides of Europe. We did that. But we have been miseducated and misinformed to believe that we are animals that needed to be civilized by those who enslaved us. This is the misrepresentation of truth, and this is why we are being forced to accept what they call critical race theory. They don't want the truth about themselves to be told. They don't want anyone to be critical about what they have done to our people. But we have to be sincere. We have to be motivated. We have to be desirous of the fact or the knowledge of who we are, so that we can teach our children what they refuse to teach our children in school. We cannot rely on them to teach us about our history. It falls upon our shoulders to teach our children what the school systems refuse to teach. We have a responsibility to our children. This is why it is important, brothers and sisters, that we study the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that we get Fall of America, that we get Message to the Black Man, because Allah God has raised a messenger in our midst to guide us out of the darkness that our former slave masters have put many of our people in. But we have to have a desire to know. The Holy Quran says, and I'll close, Allah does not change the condition of the people unless they wish to change the condition of themselves. We will remain in this condition of servitude until we desire to rise up and become the great nation that we speak about or hear about and read about in the past. We talk about how great Egypt was. We talk about how great Africa was. Well, we can be that today, but we have to desire it, and we have to do the research and study outside of the environment of our former slave masters. And the key to understanding is the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So again, today, I'm going to put a pin in this subject. There's so much to cover when we're talking about the origin of man, particularly when we've been miseducated about the origin of us and the origin of our white counterparts. So today, let me put a pin on it and let me come back to this subject Yacub's Grafted Devil, the real Synagogue of Satan. I appreciate you for tuning in, and I hope that you continue to tune into the Greenwood beat. Again, even though I'm on Facebook Live, to avoid having to look back and forth to the screen, I encourage you, please tune in to the Greenwood beat. Support Black-owned radio, Black woman-owned radio, making history out of the walls of these historic buildings where our ancestors built an independent community for themselves. This is our legacy. So let us support that which is ours. Again, thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of the Greenwood Beat, the Trumpet on Greenwood. Look forward to seeing you next week. Assalamu alaikum.